introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
Welcome to those who are here already. And as usual, I'm sure we have an awful lot of advisors who are going to plan on tuning in for the recording, and that's just fine too. So if you're watching by the recording, welcome. And if you're watching live, welcome. And my technical components are slipping on me here. Anyway, well, let's get going here. Hey, our topic today is niche marketing, and and maybe a good way to say it is becoming dominant in whatever target audience you decide that you're going to pursue. And the biggest mistake that we've seen made, I'll let you speak to this while I jibber jabber around with this stuff a little bit here, Greg, is biggest mistake we make is advisors saying, well, everybody is their audience. And anytime you say everybody, it really is nobody. You have no ability to target in other than hope for the best. So let's start with that. Why should an advisor be very focused on having a specific group of people that they're aiming for?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, one thing that people have to realize is even though you may have a specialty and feel like you're an outstanding advisor, you may feel like you have a lot of qualifications. You may feel like the people that work with you are really happy with your service, and that all may be true. Well, if one of the number one things that we deal with our clients is that they want to get more clients. So somebody that doesn't know you, when they look at you versus another advisor, y'all have the same letters after your name or for the most part. And frankly, most of your prospective clients, the people with, in your target niche that we'll talk about, don't really know the difference between a lot of those letters. And they don't know why they should have a certified financial planner versus somebody that's got whatever licensing.
An RICP, a CHFC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know any of the difference, and they don't know why one is better or one is not. And even explaining the difference becomes almost like you're going to the computer store and the guy starts talking to you about the microprocessor that's in your computer. You don't care. You just want it to function and you just want it to work right. So number one is you need to figure out ways to stand out. You don't want to be, I think you said it really well, the guy in the JCPenney suit behind the oak desk. And that's what everybody looks like when we start talking to them. And by everybody, I might say there might be a few that don't look that way, but I think it's pretty standard if we just blanket say everybody, because pretty much y'all look like everybody else. And so that, first of all, what you look like means that you don't look different, you don't stand out. I don't know why I should work with you versus somebody else. So you're left with, you're going to get clients based on referrals or based on proximity. And you might just be the guy that's in the bank that they refer you to, or you might be the guy that's in the office that they refer you to, or you just happen to be the guy in the nearby that they stumble across. And that's not a really healthy way to market your business, and not a healthy way to be not noticed. The second thing is why should people, answering the same question, why should people pay attention to you? Well, you should be the specialist for them, and you should be the guy that works that meets their needs. For example, we've got some of our clients that work with contractors, construction workers, construction contractors, other people that work with maybe doctors, but that's kind of such a broad niche that becomes so kind of cliche almost when we talk to people. Yeah, I'd like to work with doctors and lawyers because I figure they got a bunch of money. So that's who I want to work with. Well, that's not always true. Not all the doctors and lawyers have a lot of money. So which ones do you want to work with? Why are you somebody that they should talk to? And in the end, number one, you should look different. Number two, the people should be able to connect with you and have some affinity with you so that they feel comfortable trusting you with their finances, trusting you with their money, trusting you with what's going to happen in the future for their retirement. So if you're everything to everybody, it means you're nothing to nobody.
Yeah, very, 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 very good point. And let's step back a second. I mean, this is our conversation today is finding a good target audience or target niche and being the expert for that field. But I want to I hit the elephant in the room here. We're in a very interesting time, and what happens with so many financial advisors when there's market turmoil is they kind of hide under their desk, afraid that their clients are going to call them. And really, this is the best possible time to be positioned yourself as an expert and somebody who's an authority on the market. And Greg and Mindi, we've had several meetings recently, and I keep referencing books that are upstairs in my library without them being on my desk. I actually prepared adequately today to go find them and have them here for us. And so I want to show everybody a couple of these that I pulled out. But let's start with this. This is a letter that Ken Fisher did in 2009, and it starts with John Wiley & Sons just published Ken Fisher's 6th book, How to Smell a Rat: The 5 Signs of Financial Fraud. Ken decided to write this book because of all the massive reporting surrounding Madoff, and there was little material discussed about the core structural issues that allowed Madoff to swindle his clients. Well, here, this is genius. And so here's the book, How to Smell a Rat. And as I went and found this out of print book on eBay, I got the client letter that was mailed out to the client that was in the book. See, this is the type of thing that you should be aggressively and in your face doing. Why is it that the second and third largest banks in the history of the United States just failed this weekend? What is it you should be concerned about? What are the financial implications? If you're nearing retirement, what should you be concerned about? What should you be on notice about? How can we help you be aware of those things? Market crashes in bank stocks. Interest rate spikes and then dip. All of that is exactly what you should be all over immediately when stuff like that happens. So I didn't want to deviate from it, but the elephant in the room is, oh my goodness, there's so much stuff in the news, and most advisors just kind of click along, with the same message at the same time, and that's not what you should be doing. You should be grabbing the bull by the horns, to mix metaphors, and talking about the elephant in the room. Jump on the elephant and ride it for all it's worth is really what you should be doing. But the books I was talking about in questions, I wanted to share some of these because in past podcasts and so forth, I've talked about several of them. Here's one: a pilot who decides to become the financial advisor for other pilots. And so he puts together this little book called A Pilot's Guide, The Pilot's Advisor, 7 Lessons to Help Pilots Land Safely in Retirement. Cute little subset. Here, this is one that was co-authored by a friend of mine, Leaving the Lizard. In other words, people who are, what's the insurance company that uses the gecko?
Geico.
Geico, yeah. So aimed at Geico employees and maximizing their retirement plan. Here's the one that I really love. And again, none of these are things that I did. It's other very smart advisors put these together, but it's a good example. Here's this gentleman did a series of books specifically aimed at business owners coming up on a liquidity event. So this one's called 20 Million and Broke. And in fact, I have 2 different books that he did that turned out to be the same book. He just he hooked up with a friend of mine by the name of Dan Kennedy and changed the headline to something more somewhat better. Here he is in a suit with the Lamborghini, and then here he is with pulling out the pockets, looking like he's destitute. And And that's something we've been trying to get people to do, is go after business owners of 10 to $20 million businesses coming up on a liquidity event. Here's another one specifically aimed at executive financial planning for smart executives. Here's a friend of mine, David Phelps, and he's in the comparable business. This book is What's Your Next? The Blueprint for Creating Your Freedom Lifestyle. But his company is called Freedom Founders, and what he teaches is dentists how not to be dentists anymore. And and by the way, here's the alternative title. You sold, and this may have been a different book. You sold your company. What comes next? But you start to get the idea. Is one of the things that from a marketing standpoint always works the best is find a group of people that you identify with, find a group of people that you understand, find a group of people whose language that you can learn to speak. In other words, stop speaking advisor and start speaking in language that pilots understand, executives understand, business owners understand, but speak in their language. So find a group of people that you can effectively target that are going to be good prospects, and then go at them hard and heavy. And again, Greg, Mindi, we find almost every advisor that we deal with, you ask them who their target audience is. Well, we can repeat verbatim, 50 to 65-year-olds with $500,000 and up in investable assets so that we can manage their retirement. Okay, well, that's exciting. I'm so glad you narrowed it down at that level. But how about if we became the expert advisor that was working at Google or working at Vonage or working at, the biggest 5 employers in your area, to start with? Or what if we're the person who's targeting, like David is, 50-something dentists who are tired of being dentists, who want to get out of their practice and create a permanent lifestyle without having to go and show up at the office? What if we were targeting business owners of 5 to 20 million or maybe 10 to 30 million dollar small businesses who are coming up on a liquidity event? What if we had a mechanism for directly getting to people whose businesses are pre-market or on the market and getting them before that liquidity event, and then taking a handoff on managing the funds that they receive? Because again, there's we've talked about before, but I have a good friend his business is taking $5 million plus or minus businesses, growing them to 10 or 20 million, and then selling them. And all the growth is about acquisition and development so that they're positioned to sell, to create that liquidity event. And he got into that because he did it himself. But then he hands them off to an advisor who then shows them how to maintain the money. And the rule number 1 for the advisor is you're not allowed to spend any of it for the first year, because obviously he's working on making sure they don't buy 2 Lamborghinis or Rolls and, get a divorce and get the new trophy wife and buy an island. And most of those business owners, by the way, 6 to 12 months later are ready to go into another business. So to maintain that, they don't actually go to the beach and sip Mai Tais. It just doesn't happen. But I thought we might start with that, Greg. Is there's some great examples of targeting Geico, targeting a dentist, targeting pilots, targeting business owners of more or less a $20 million business, plus or minus, coming up on a liquidity event. And by the way, when it comes to building AUM, it's a heck of a lot easier to get 5 people at $20 million each than it is to get to 100 million by going and rounding up 100, 200, 250 at a time, right? Plus, the management of the operation is much easier. Wouldn't you like to build a 200 million, 300 million, 400 million AUM business with 40 to 80 clients? That would certainly make life a lot easier and make the quality of service you're providing them much higher.
Well, and I think the psychology of this, it has to be understood, because sometimes when we talk to our advisors, what they'll say is, and come back with, well, yeah, but if I reach out to more people, and I'm everything for everybody, then won't I get more traffic? Won't I get more leads and more prospects? And the answer is absolutely not. And it goes back to what we said originally, which is then you don't look like you're any different from anybody else. Yeah. And if you flip that message that you just said, that we hear again and again and again, I want to work with 55 to 65-year-olds with, $500,000 or more in investable assets, then flip that message back if that was in your marketing, because it sort of comes out in your marketing if you don't have anything specific in there. If that's who you work with, and if that's what you told everybody, that's not what your marketing message would be exactly. But if you did tell everybody that, then why would anybody care about working with you? That doesn't tell me why you're going to be good for me as a business owner, or as somebody that's we've got some people that work with Peter was a good example, did a lot of work with martial artists of all people, that has something that I understand you a little bit.
Yeah, he suddenly has 30 top 1% martial arts school owners as clients.
Right. And so there's some niches that you wouldn't expect. If we told you that would be a potentially good niche, you might think, well, that would be, a crappy niche, and you'd probably be right in most cases, but there's ways to make those niches work really well. So the fallacy of the logic is, if I'm everything to everybody, then I'll have more traffic. And the answer is absolutely not. You'll have less traffic. And if you narrow things down to be the top guy for, let's say, Google, maybe you're in the area, then because you speak a message that resonates with people, you're going to get a bigger flood of traffic. And that's really problem one we try to solve, is get you a flood of traffic through some of these strategies. This isn't the end of the picture. We got to help you with what to do now, but first we help establish the niche.
Yeah, that's right. And another good example is Daniel Hecht, by the way. I was going to pull up his information here quickly if I can find it. But he is a retired police chief, and here we go. I'll share this with everybody. He's a retired police chief who now is targeting police chiefs all across the country. And so I'll share this with everybody here real quick. And he has 3 different direct affiliations that's working extremely well. He's a former police chief. And he's shares with us a martial arts background. So he has very effectively targeted police chiefs and other high-level police officers and officials in, what would you say, small to mid-sized cities around the country. And then he brought in an associate who's a former fire chief. And they have effectively gone after fire chiefs in small to mid-sized cities around the country. And here's some feedback he had here. Just using these principles, he grew his brokerage, added 5 additional offices, and has brought in an extraordinary number of advisors and agents under his umbrella here. Of course, he's doing, in this case, a testimonial on our new book, but he was talking about the general principles here. He's a good example as well of really narrowing in, and nothing there is saying that if a current client brings their son in, who happens not to be a dentist, plastic surgeon, pilot, that nothing at all is saying that you don't work with those people and expand them. And in fact, David Phelps, who I mentioned earlier, Freedom Founders, he works with people who aren't dentists. It's just that he built a huge company directly off of dentists before ever expanding beyond dentists. And if it were me, and I already have a $200 million AUM practice, I have a couple million in revenue, I might build multiple channels. I might build a channel targeted at dentists, and I might build a channel targeted at dentists preparing to move out of their practice, whether you call it retirement or not, or just getting out of their practice. full time as an actual practicing dentist. And then I might also target other business owners in the same age range who are approaching retirement. And then I might draw a radius around my office. Not that you ever have to be geographically limited, but I might draw a radius around my office and look at who are the top 5 employers in my state as a starting point. How can I stick my foot in the door and start working with their executives? And Greg, what the strategy we've used, God, I don't know, what, 25 years now or more, is going through the existing client roster and really getting to know the existing client roster better and finding out what the resources that we already have available. And this is, now if I'm starting out from scratch, it might be, the next door neighbors, the relatives, and the frat buddies, right? But if I'm an existing advisor and I start working through my client list, remember the time, so many advisors we talk to have incredible resources at their fingertips that they just never have spotted. It takes somebody looking over their shoulder and pointing it out before they spot it. You remember our conversation in the advisor in Toronto, that there were like 10 or 15 tremendous foot in the doors. One was into the professional hockey leagues there locally. It's very similar to my story about the foot in the door with the Denver Broncos football team and the Denver Nuggets basketball team. Already the foot in the door. In my case, I had the marketing director for the Nuggets and I had the CFO for the Broncos.
It's Lee Milt here, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
That were clients. And it provided a natural inroads to working with those organizations and in any number of ways. But that's a really good place to start, and it's the easiest possible route into those kinds of niches.
Yeah, and I think some of the reaction that sometimes people have is, well, I don't have a niche. I'm not a pilot, or I don't know anything about dentists, or I don't know anything about this. But one of the ways you can get to narrow down what some niches are that you might want to work with is what you just said, is looking at that list and then being the guy for you might have a majority of people or even some quantity of people from your current client list. And maybe you're starting out and you don't have any. You might even be thinking about what things you like to do. We had the one guy that was into Star Wars. Stuff. And if you look at people that like Star Wars, that's probably across a general scope, bell curve of income. So you may not be marketing to all Star Wars aficionados, but you could probably narrow that down into a niche of the ones that have money, the ones that be closer to retirement, the ones that would be more interested. And that seems like a weird oddball niche, but it doesn't have to be.
No.
And of course, Peter, we're trying to get him to work with
Porsche.
Porsche aficionados, because he's a Porsche aficionado. What a great market. That one seems more obvious, but some of these less obvious ones don't have to be are easy to work with. And it also should be people that you maybe like working with. If you think that there's a lot of money in working with people that are car salesmen, and you just hate car salesmen, then don't work with them. Let's find another niche for you. If you really like working with people that do hospice care, you could work with people that are managing hospice care centers, and they might, I don't know how much money they make, but that still might be a good market for you. There's things that you may really have an affinity working with. Now, we wouldn't probably suggest that if you have if you love working with people that are in homeless shelters, that those probably aren't your target market. So we have to be smart about it.
Yeah, right. Well, right. And that's but to expand upon what you just said, there is, what we'll do when we're working with a new client ourselves, and I mean an advisor, not a planning client, is we look through, we cyber stalk them, right? We go through their LinkedIn profile, we go, their other social media, we go through their website, we go through whatever personal blogs and YouTube channel, podcast, et cetera, that they have. And so many times just hiding in plain sight, there's the former career, there's the passionate hobby, there's, and so if you go through, and you've got to really open your eyes to what have you done in the past. An advisor that I was talking to recently, I mean, he's a expatriate, just moved back to Florida from Costa Rica, and there's a huge U.S. expatriate population in Costa Rica that needs help, and there's a huge Costa Rican audience that has moved into the States, and then certainly into Florida specifically. But just that. In this case, he was bilingual, so you've got, okay, he speaks Spanish. He has a natural affinity to people who are expatriates from one place to the other, and again, it's where you often have to have an external vision on what have I done in the past. What are my hobbies? What are my interests? What are my background? And we haven't shared any of our background here, but Mindi here. Hi, Mindi. Mindi has an extensive background in book publishing and book promotions in the Christian market, in small to massive event promotions and operations. I think you've run events ranging from 5 to 40,000. Probably in that range, more or less. And then Greg, you and I both have an extensive background, both in working with financial advisors, but working with other professionals in every aspect. The foot in the door for most people is really they need more clients. So we have a tendency to start with online marketing, direct mail, event marketing, and so forth. But really, ultimately, it ends up being practice management, because they have to get things done to people, and they have to systematize, and they have to automate if they're going to grow. But we come from an interesting background of running multi-locations, martial arts schools, among other things. And I think between us, we've had well over 50,000 students that we've enrolled through those mechanisms, doing everything from Google marketing and Facebook and other social media marketing, all the way back to full page ads and in the daily newspapers, TV guide ads, infomercials. I've done extensive 30-second spots on Oprah and all kinds of other, evening news, et cetera. And so we've done all of that kind of marketing, ranging the gamut from what was working the best in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and all the way through to the day, whether it's online or offline, and then have applied that to the advisor niche. And in my case, working in that niche for coming up on 15 years through privately with a few people who discovered me just because my profile with everything else I was doing. You've got the piled higher and deeper degree. You're our official engineer / psychologist, which is a interesting combination. And I've got my background in economics, and then an MBA, which makes me, I guess, specifically attuned to the rebirth of the Jimmy Carter era under Biden, which, any and all predictions that I made 2.5 years ago, sadly, seem to be coming true, but hopefully not at that same extent.
Well, but I think that comes back to the relevance that you talked about earlier. Part of the speaking to our market is, in the message that we want to give out, is paying attention to the things that are going on right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's there's a sure way to get people's attention, and two sure ways, and there's a couple more, but we'll only hit a couple right now. One is to be one of them, and two is to get inside the conversation that they're already having in their mind and pointed out, right? So it's address the elephant in the room, which is the Silicon Bank failure and other issues going on immediately like that. That's if you want to generate huge amounts of publicity, be the expert. Every TV network, local TV, the newspapers locally, the magazines, even the local community papers are looking for somebody to give their opinion, oftentimes valid or invalid opinion on those subjects right now. And by the way, everything that we're talking about, I mean, it's been run through compliance, and there's, there are no compliance issues. And some of you work with bigger firms, and you have to run it through, run it up the chain. And some of you work as your own compliance officer. So whatever it might be, we're never doing anything that's going to violate any of the compliance, and nor are we, pulling out the crystal ball and being prognosticators. But that's one way to get attention, is be inside the conversation that's currently going on. And the other way to always garner attention is to be one of them. It's the example you used earlier of our client who is a Porsche fanatic. He's trying to collect one of every generation of the Porsche 911 turbos. Well, it's a natural to have ads in the local, regional, national Porsche Club, PCW magazines. It's a natural to be working with the local dealership where he's dumped a couple $1 million probably over the years, and be working with their clientele. It's a natural to be at their day at the track events. It would be a natural to hold something at the Atlanta or the LA, the Porsche track club deals, and to pull in Porsche fanatics from all over the country. I mean, because they're looking for somebody who thinks like they do. And in this case, the ones that are at the fanatical end, like he is, not the soccer mom who just bought a Macan because it looks nice, but the fanatics like he is, they're the marketing is a natural. The headlines write themselves. The outreach is a natural on how that would all work. But again, going back to these examples, we've done a lot of work recently with getting to business owners just prior to a liquidation event, or business owners, frankly, who are just kind of burnt out. That's the dentist conversation, who just want to not be what they are anymore, or going directly to big companies. That's this one. In a sense, that's this one. Depends upon, if they're private or if they're working for United, but going to big companies and getting directly to their executives, and they tend to appreciate somebody who will work in their C-suite and work in their middle management ranks to help them maximize their benefits. And that is a problem that those companies have. Hey, let's shift gears here for a second. Mindi, Greg, anything to add to that quickly before we shift gears for a second?
Well, companies are really, as you said, companies are really responsive. We think that, the company's not going to want us to come in and talk to them and have a conversation with them about working with their C-suite executives or their upper management. But that's really not been the case in most situations. They would just as soon have the benefit of you coming in and working with them, especially if you can show or have some reason why you would be the better person to help these guys out. That's what this whole message is about, is why should they do it, and what's the unique reason why you're going to be better for them and why you have some affinity with this group. And again, I would maybe make the message to anybody is you're hearing this, if the message in your head is going, well, yeah, but I don't know who I would be working with, or I don't know how I would be unique, or I don't know how I can make myself unique. That's what we can help you do later when we meet with you. If we follow up with you one-on-one, certainly we could do that. But there's a lot of easy ways to get to that point. It's that part I wouldn't worry about right now. Pay attention to when you do have a niche, how this would operate. You bet.
And I wanted to share this as well. Let me move to screen share. You guys can tell me if I manage to share the correct screen or not, and if it came out looking fine. Is that readable?
Yeah.
Really, what we're doing here is we're launching a new level of our membership, but we started with, and I could say I started with working just individually with some of the top advisors in the world, the top 1/10 of 1%ers, to help them expand their marketing range. And a couple years ago, we got into this more formally with kind of the next tier down, the advisors who are $500,000 and up, working together in what I'll term a private client environment, where we work with them individually and in small cohort groups. But really, in April, we're launching, and we've been kind of pre-launching and putting together the pieces here. What we'll call for want of a better term, the Advisor Wealth Mastery Inner Circle. So it's a lower level designed for advisors to really look at and develop and expand on all the different areas that they should be working on to develop their practice. And as far as what the curriculum to that is, and I thought I'd put together a not completely comprehensive list here, and you guys can feel free to add to it if anything I missed, because as usual, I threw this together 20 minutes ago. But based upon what we've actually put together for the year. Client communications that accelerate referrals and multi-generational relationships to maximize that relationship. Effective use of webinars and Zoom events for new client acquisition. Effective social media targeted advertising. LinkedIn without manual labor, not just using LinkedIn as a replacement for cold calls. That's kind of the fool's errand on that, but really maximizing. It's become a very productive platform. Creating and effectively using a book, like we were pointing out, this one, and this one co-written by a friend of mine. Well, several of them were friends or people I'm going to host on the podcast here coming up shortly. But creating and effectively marketing with that. And some of you already have a book, but somebody put together a book and then didn't teach you what to do with it. It's really about building credibility and using it as a lead magnet. And then moving from manual labor to automation and qualified lead generation. Very, very, very few advisors have ever moved to that stage where it's not just their own manual labor. Effective online marketing, website design essentials. And I know that some of you don't have much control over it if you're in the captive space. The independent guys have a lot more flexibility. But even there, with the example before, working within Northwestern Mutual, and they actually have tools that most of their advisors don't know about and aren't using and haven't really bothered to work through with their technical guys on how to maximize. Greg, as you remember, we had one of the advisors who had leads coming in every month he didn't know he had, and was getting no follow-up with them whatsoever.
Well, and I think some of the people, when we're looking at this, it's important for you to understand this stuff, but not to the level that you have to be a programmer or developer or anything like that. We wouldn't want you to spend time to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Effective search marketing, Google, effective marketing, pay-per-click and retargeting, becoming a celebrity in your chosen niche, online and offline publicity, fixing live event marketing, effective email marketing for getting results. Most people are doing a horrible job at this. And Greg, as we talk about a lot of times, I wrote the first internet marketing book in, I think it was 1999. And back then I loved marketing. And that was back in the era of You've Got Mail and, sitting and watching the AOL screen for the next incoming mail. But still, email is a very effective tool done right. You've just got to recognize that most people are getting 200 emails a day. And if it's a generic HTML notification that you send once a month, they haven't even noticed it. So effective direct mail done right. And we tend to start with direct mail from a standpoint of client communication, expanding client referrals, expanding prospect conversions first, long before we ever do anything that would be considered cold direct mail. And even then, it's all about list selection and getting an effective targeted list. Trust-based selling, creating expertise and trust in the mind of the prospect. I saw an online poll yesterday on LinkedIn, but the number one thing is nowadays, especially in an environment like this, is that they're looking for somebody that they intuitively trust and trust with their finances, trust with
It's Lee Milt here, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
giving them advice. And if you don't do a good job of that, which is why most advisors also don't ever get beyond referral marketing. They figure that's the way that they build trust best, but there's an awful lot of things that you can do to immediately build rapport, build a sense of credibility, build a high level of trust with people, even if they came from Google marketing, Facebook marketing, LinkedIn marketing, other sources.
Well, and just to go along with our theme, if you're everything to everybody, then it's hard to build trust because you're not one of them. You don't have some message that's important to them, the people. You know, if you're so this is a really good example of why to build trust, there should be some identification component.
Yeah. If you're everything to everybody or nobody to anybody, basically is the idea. But building that positioning, being the guru for your expertise, creating qualified leads versus buying leads, and then effective content marketing, how to do that well. But I wanted to go through that a little bit because at this lower level, or at this new level, I guess I should say, there's nothing particularly lower about it, but at the inner circle level, that's the curriculum that we're covering for financial advisors. And every month, what we're doing, in fact, I could kind of go through the deliverable here a little bit, but every month what we're doing in a very interactive way is a monthly newsletter that is going to really educate on marketing, sales, practice management secrets for financial advisors, drawn from real world experience in the market right now of what's working. A monthly, not what we're doing right now. What we're doing is a webinar. Participants, whether live or on recorded, aren't really engaged in the conversation here. Although we invite you to ask any and all questions, we'll have you call and we'll set a time personally to do that for each and every one of you. But where we do a monthly mastery session where we really dig deep into one of these topics. Greg and Mindy, we haven't seen anybody yet who's doing live event marketing as an example, whether it's lunch meetings, dinner meetings, meetings at the library, meetings at the community college, or meetings in their own conference room, who are really doing a good job on conversion. Their ability to numbers people aren't doing a very good job of tracking their numbers and don't know what they mean. But we dig deep into each of those topics. And I see a lot of, and Greg, this has been kind of our modus operandi now for 20 years, is taking existing methodologies that people are implementing that they're getting, let's say they get 20 leads and they close 3 clients, showing them how to convert that to closing 10 clients, how to close 12 clients. So 200%, 300%, 400% improvement from the money they're already spending, from the time they're already investing, showing them how to massively improve that. And it is something that most people just can't see on their own. They have to have somebody look over their shoulder a little bit and show you where those missed opportunities are. But what we'll be doing is a monthly session that's very interactive. This is a picture of one of our little Zoom meetings. It's a small, manageable group of people and a cohort group that are fully interactive, able to ask any questions. So what we do is we do a monthly session where we really delve deep into a topic, and then we do a monthly session that's an open Q&A on any and everything that people are implementing, regardless of whether it's directly associated with that topic or not. And we have a new, completely new discussion forum and interactive area where we're sharing these mastery lessons. They'll be there to go through, as well as an active discussion forum. And it'll be an active discussion forum, not only of the of people in this inner circle group, but in our private client group and so forth, where everybody is able to interact with one another, ask questions, get questions answered by us, and get questions answered by each other. So I wanted to share that because that's really the material that we're going to delve in and do a deep dive. And Greg, I would like to say that we really have all the pieces put together on this thing, but we don't even have a web page for them to go register yet on. That's where
we have all the content put together. We just don't have the place for them to go register.
Well, that's right. We have 3 years worth of content put together, and had to trim and eliminate a bunch of it. But that's why we have Mindy's phone number there, 303-808-8719. And I'll go back to this. What we are going to do is I'll give everybody a sense of what this is going to be. This is going to be a $997 a month program, and anybody who did this who couldn't add at least 10,000 in personal income from this, would have to be an idiot not implementing the damn thing, because really it's adequate to build you to 200 million in additional AUM in a pretty short period of time. But what we're going to do in the pre-launch phase is we're going to do this for just $247 a month. And again, that's not going to last very long. That's just this pre-launch phase. And by the way, we're going to throw in really what should be a $2,500 program in and of itself. Greg, we really sweated on putting this program together. I mean, it covers the gamut of online marketing, social media marketing, positioning, developing niche marketing, and so forth. And it's pictured here as a physical deliverable. So we actually do mail you 15 DVDs, 15 CDs, transcripts, flash drive with all of the material on it, data disk, and digital downloads. But the digital download piece is important. It is all going to be in the member site, so you can go through as MP3 streaming. You can listen to it on your iPhone, on your Android phone. You can listen to it in your car streaming, or if you do have a CD player in your car, you can use that. If you have a DVD player, you can watch it on DVD. I'm still of the belief system that pretty much any delivery format we give people the opportunity for, short of, we probably won't go back to audio cassettes, but or records at this point. That I had we rewatched in Florida, by the way, when we were at that meeting. Remember, we watched the movie Founders, and that was Ray Kroc had the record player in his car, and he was listening to Earl Nightingale on phonograph discs in his car, with it skipping from time to time, and in his hotel room. So we probably won't go back to that either, but it is all digitally available and digitally download. Greg, maybe give them a little bit of a sense of what this program is all about.
Well, really, I mean, it's everything A to Z for you to get started. And what's great about this is some of you need to start with, different places in the process. So you're maybe in your situation, we can help you with some online marketing. Maybe in your situation, you're already doing some seminars, and that's part of your profile of your marketing, but they're not as effective as they could be. That's one thing we're really, really good at. And we can quadruple or 10 times even what you're doing. And I'm not exaggerating there, the effectiveness of your seminar. So there's a lot of stuff it's such a big package. It might look like it's overwhelming. We're not telling you to start at, page one of 300 hours of content, or step one, and then listen to 300 hours of content, and then you're going to be an expert, and then you start. It's really going to be targeting and narrowing things down to exactly what you need to do for the next step in your business and your practice, and then using that to get some results, and then finding the next thing and using that to get some results. But we do ultimately want you to have quite a few marketing pieces going on, and marketing projects or marketing tactics going on at one time. So this lets you have all that, and gives you all the backup. Plus, when we get together in our Q&A once a month, and in the newsletter, we can keep you up to date with what's currently working, what changes. And I think one thing you said a while back, Stephen, is we've been marketing since the 80s. And what worked in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and 2010s and 2020s and 23 now, it morphs and changes. And so what frustrates a lot of all business owners is they've got to keep changing and updating and adapting, but they don't have time to become experts and read all the magazines to do all the work and do all the things. And that's what we're really good at. So we can help you stay up to date on that. But I also want to emphasize it's not just about marketing. It's about once your marketing works and you really will get a flood of good quality traffic, then we want to get you to take the next step to make sure all that gets converted and turned into really good quality clients that stay with you for a long time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, I might point out anybody who gets in on our pre-launch level, we are going to grandfather them in. So we won't raise the tuition on you at each stage as we put it to where it's supposed to be, that $997 a month level and or beyond that. So if you get in now at the $247, we're just going to lock you in on that and probably be kicking ourselves and cussing about it in 12 or 18 months. But that will not change for this level program. But again, the deliverables are monthly newsletter that's going to be and physically delivered. It's not just an email that will teach you about practice management, sales conversion processes, marketing, and so forth. The once a month high level mastery session where we're doing a deep dive into one of these topics that I just walked through. A monthly Q&A where you can ask about that topic and or any other topic that's on your mind. And the discussion forum where all the three of us and the rest of our team actually, Merrick, who's our technical person, and Jeff Smith, who's higher level practice management, and Bob Dunn, who's our sales expert, if you will, and client management expert, will all be involved with and interacting in that discussion forum as well. And so, but again, to get started here, we'll send you this full extraordinary marketing package. And by the way, if you haven't gotten my book yet, we will make sure you get that book as well. We'll send it out to you in hard copy as well as the digital downloads. But to take advantage of this, give Mindi a call, 303-808-8719. Again, this is a pre-launch for our official launch in April. We will not be launching it at this price point, but we will grandfather you in. This is the curriculum, and within that, you'll get that full marketing program to get you really up and running. And Greg, I wanted to add one other thing to what you just said, is what we're really, really skillful at, I must say, is combining two things which seem kind of counterproductive. Kind of like the facade of Wall Street on the wall behind me there, is showing people how to build a Parthenon of marketing structures and techniques. So kind of like in the COVID crisis, if you were just doing lunch meetings, dinner meetings, live meetings, you were dead in the water for a while. But showing how to build a Parthenon, how to build multiple feeders for new clients. And what we find in reality is some things work great in any given month, other things don't work as well. But if you have 10, 15, 20 different things going on all the time to stir up referrals, to stir up new clientele, to rake across and get pre-liquidity event business owners, et cetera, you get a really solid and stable growth pattern, and you can very highly targeted qualified new clients, so that you're only working with people that you're going to have a strong affinity with, that you like, and they're going to have the level of quality from a standpoint of bringing AUM and whatever your target audience is into your practice. But what we're really good at, where I was going with that, is helping to prioritize, not having a 50-point to-do list, but having a 2 or 3 point to-do list. And so we're really focused on, let's maximize this thing and get it clicking like a top and be able to turn the crank and just keep it going, then move to the next thing and move to the next thing. And I find so many times is advisors will have something that they did that worked really well, and then they drop it. And what we want to do is we want to systematize it, to whatever extent automate it, and to whatever extent delegate it. and keep it going and keep that crank turning on that, and then add the next thing and add the next thing and add the next thing. I was just having a conversation, Greg, before we started this one, with an advisor who he knows a bunch of great stuff to do. He's just not doing it in a systematic way, and he's doing it onesie twosies rather than with a client list of 600 and a prospect list of 300, rather than communicating with them every month, every week in effective ways, and in cost-effective ways. They're just kind of sitting there going dormant. And then he's Jay Abraham called that instead of doing systematic marketing, what was the other word he used? Doing episodic. Doing episodic marketing rather than systematic marketing. You want to have systematic marketing, not episodic, meaning it just every so often. Kind of like the example of the client referral event. One of our advisors, I said, what's the best you ever did doing an event that was a client referral event? And he was lit up. He goes, oh yeah, I have a friend who has an art gallery, and we did this great client event at the art gallery, and we rounded up a bunch of people. I said, well, great. How often do you do that? He said, well, once. I said, well, when's the last time you did it? 7 years ago. Okay, well, why isn't that an annual event, or why isn't it a spring and fall event? And then we can add a summer event, we can add a winter event. And the hardest time to do anything is the first time. Once you get it, the checklist, and you get the automation, and you get the process, and you figured out the things you did that were irrelevant and the things you did that worked really well, then it's easy to just keep turning that crank and then add to it and add to it and add to it. But again, what I would recommend for everybody to do is give Mindi a call. We'll get you immediately going on that new program. If you want to be considered on that private client group at the higher level, we do that only by invitation and by having a one-on-one conversation to see if you qualify. And you're welcome to raise your hand, and we'll set a time with, frankly, with Mindi, then with Greg, then with myself, because frankly, we're way more selective than you might expect on people that we're willing to work with. What would you add to that, Greg?
Yeah, well, and when you talk about doing one thing at a time, when help get focused, one thing and get a lot of results. So if the example is we talked about what the money lying around on the floor, people often aren't paying attention to what's right in front of them, and what we can help with is helping you find what's right in front of you and scoop that up, and often that's massive. And the episodic marketing is that you said that Jay talks about. I think that's it's prevalent in almost every advisor we talk to. They're doing a little bit of marketing, or they try to abdicate it and toss it over the fence. And then when we talk to them, very frequently, that's the expectation. Well, aren't you guys just going to do all the marketing for us? Well, no, we are going to help you with all the marketing, make sure that you do a good job of it. But if we just did it all for you, then you'd be blind as to how it all worked, and then you wouldn't be really solving any of your business problems. I think Dan Kennedy says that really well. You just need to be able to quarterback it and understand it a little bit. Just like all that stuff that you listed, it's not so you build your website and you go to the post office and stamp some mail and do all that. We don't want you doing any of that. But what we want you to do is be good at this part of your business, so you can be healthy and have a consistent success rate over time.
Yeah, and we can help you delegate to an agency to handle Facebook ads, an agency to handle Google ads. We can help you delegate to somebody to develop your website. The thing that most advisors, most business owners, frankly, do that is a failure mechanism is abdicate and look for an expert on how to do Facebook advertising and hand it off to them without understanding what it's supposed to do. You've got to understand what the process is, what the target audience is, what we just walked through with our own Google ads yesterday, actually, and we found some what should have been negative targeting, where we were paying Google to find people for us, where we had to go in and shut that down itself, and that was from delegating to an agency and this was then our review of what they were doing, and it turned out that we were wasting time with people who shouldn't have even been in the pipeline. Isn't that right, Mindy? So we just walked through that. And again, I did forget to mention that we also include our friend and mentor Lee Meltier's Complete Millionaire Smarts program with this. And it's a weekly lesson on expanding your thinking, expanding your focus, an awful lot of it on goal setting, practice management, managing and motivating people, and so forth. So very, 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 very good content. And that's all included at this lower level as well. Again, that component in and of itself really is what we're charging the pre-launch. But what we're doing is giving you an opportunity to be the early adopters here, and then we're going to do the full launch at the correct pricing in April. So if you want to get in under the wire, give Mindy a call now at 303-808-8719. And on that note, Greg, anything to add before we go continue our Death by Zoom meet today with our next client meeting?
Well, I think Lee's program is worth like 5 times what we're charging just for this one by itself. So each one of these pieces is going to give you a good return on investment, massive. But the big thing is to take action on what we do.
Yeah, if you can't add 10,000 a month in personal income, from the lessons you're getting from this, you're just not paying attention. So really, it should be way more than that. But and that's always our threshold for what we're going to charge. We want to get at least a 10 to 1, and in most cases a 20 or 30 to 1 return on investment. And that's clearly the logic for what the ultimate tuition for this is going to be. But again, Mindy's phone number is 303-808-8719. You can reach out to her by picking up the phone and dialing, or texting her and scheduling an appointment, and then we will go from there. And Greg, I will see you on our next client meeting in yet a different Zoom room.
I'll talk to you later, sir.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.